Let me warn you about something before this video continues. If you fully understand what I am about to show you, the way you look at your life will change. Because the average life is not maintained by force. It is maintained by invisible agreements. Agreements about what is safe. Agreements about what is realistic. Agreements about what you should and should not attempt. Most people follow those agreements their entire life without ever noticing them. And the moment someone starts questioning them, everything begins to shift. In the next 15 minutes, I am going to break those agreements apart piece by piece, because once you see them clearly, they lose most of their control over you. Let us go. Let me say the thing nobody says directly. Average is not bad luck. Average is not a starting point you have not escaped yet. Average is an active system, a specific, functioning, self-reinforcing machine that runs on your daily decisions, your environment, and the social world around you. And it is extraordinarily good at what it does. Here is how the machine works. The average life is maintained through invisible defaults. Defaults in how you spend your morning before you make a conscious decision about it. Defaults in how you spend your evening after the day has taken what it wants from you. Defaults in who you spend your time with, what you consume, what you expose your mind to, and what you silently decide is realistic versus unrealistic for someone in your specific position. These defaults were not chosen by you. They were inherited from your environment, from the people around you, from the culture you absorbed before you were old enough to filter it. And because they were inherited rather than chosen, they feel like reality rather than decisions. They feel like the way things are rather than options you selected from a menu of available options. That feeling is the machine's most important feature. As long as the defaults feel like reality rather than choices, you will never examine them. And as long as you never examine them, they will keep running, quietly, consistently, producing the same average outputs they have always produced regardless of what you say you want or what you tell yourself you are working toward. The first illegal truth is this: the average life is not something that happened to you. It is something that is happening through you, through your unexamined defaults, right now, today. And the escape does not begin with a dramatic external change. It begins with the deeply uncomfortable act of examining each default and asking whether you chose it or inherited it. Most of what you will find is inherited, and inherited defaults can be replaced, but only once you stop experiencing them as reality and start experiencing them as choices, which is exactly what this video is designed to do. Here is the mathematics that changes everything when you actually look at them directly. You have 6 genuinely discretionary hours per day, after sleep, after work, after the basic maintenance that adult life requires. 6 hours where nobody is scheduling you and nobody has a prior claim on your time. Now here is the question that matters. What are you currently doing with those 6 hours? The average man spends between 4 and 6 of those hours consuming social media, short-form video, passive entertainment that feels like rest because it requires no physical effort, but that produces nothing buildable, nothing compounding, nothing that moves the actual trajectory of his life by a single measurable degree. 4 to 6 hours per day of consumption. Across 1 year, that is between 1,400 and 2,000 hours. Across a decade, that is between 14,000 and 21,000 hours fed into machines that return nothing to you except the feeling of having seen a lot of things you cannot remember. Meanwhile, the skill that would double your income, 1,000 hours of deliberate practice, produces genuine competence in almost any domain. You are burning that amount every single year on content that evaporates by morning. Here is the part that makes this illegal to say. Your time is not being taken from you by force. It is being extracted through design. The platforms consuming your evenings were engineered by rooms full of the smartest people in the world, with one specific objective: to capture and hold your attention as efficiently as possible. They deploy variable reward schedules, social validation loops, outrage triggers, and infinite scroll mechanics that your ancient brain has no natural defense against. You are not weak for being affected by this. You are human, but you are also being harvested. And the harvest is your discretionary time. The only resource that, directed differently, would change everything about where your life goes from here. The second illegal truth is this: the war for your time is real. It is being fought against you right now by extraordinarily capable and well-funded opponents. And the score right now, measured in hours per day, is not in your favor. The escape begins the moment you stop being a passive participant in that war and start being a deliberate one. This is the one that will make some people angry. Good. The things that make people angry are almost always the things that are true enough to threaten something they have decided to protect. The people around you are not neutral. Every person in your regular environment is either pulling you toward the life you want to build or pulling you toward the life you are trying to escape. There is no neutral. There is no person in your daily life who has zero effect on your trajectory. Social influence does not work that way, and the evidence on this is so overwhelming that choosing to ignore it at this point is not skepticism. It is avoidance. Your income converges toward the average income of your 5 closest relationships. Your habits converge toward the habits of the people you spend the most time with. Your sense of what is possible, the invisible ceiling you place on your own ambition, is calibrated constantly by the reference points of the lives you are most regularly exposed to. Here is what nobody will say to your face. Some of the people you love, some of the people who genuinely care about you, some of the people whose company you enjoy, are quietly, unconsciously, with zero malicious intent, keeping you average. Not because they want bad things for you, because they have made peace with average themselves. And your proximity to their settled reality is a constant gravitational pull toward the same settlement. And some of those people will resist your growth, not with cruelty, with the specific discomfort that someone close to them changing produces in them. Your discipline is a judgment of their indulgence. Your ambition is evidence that the exit they told themselves did not exist was available the whole time. And the human response to that evidence is not always support. Sometimes it is the joke that plants doubt, the question that makes your goal seem naive, the observation designed to bring you back to the level where they are comfortable with you. The third illegal truth is this: every man who has genuinely escaped average has had to make decisions about who gets access to his time and energy that were uncomfortable, and that the people being managed out did not understand or appreciate. This is not about cruelty. It is about recognizing that loyalty to people and loyalty to your potential are sometimes in direct conflict. And every time you have chosen people over potential without examining that choice, you paid a price you probably did not notice you were paying. Your comfort zone is not a place of safety. It is a place of slow, invisible decay. Here is the actual mechanism behind why this is true and why it matters more than most people ever understand. Every capability you currently have was built at the edge of your previous comfort zone. Every skill, every confidence, every capacity you possess was developed in a moment where you were operating slightly beyond what felt familiar and safe. Not overwhelmingly beyond, slightly beyond. The brain builds new capability through the specific productive stress of encountering challenges that slightly exceed current capacity. Inside your comfort zone, the brain is in maintenance mode. It is running existing programs efficiently. It is not building new architecture because the comfortable and familiar does not signal to the brain that new architecture is required. The stress signal that triggers growth is absent, and without that signal, growth does not happen regardless of how much time passes. Which means every day spent entirely inside your comfort zone is a day your actual capability is not growing, not staying still, not growing. And in a world where the people competing for the outcomes you want are growing, not growing means falling behind at exactly the rate they are advancing. Now here is the part that connects directly to escaping average. The average life is fundamentally a comfort maximization strategy. Every default built into the average life, the passive evenings, the avoided difficult conversations, the deferred hard decisions, the comfortable relationships, the familiar routines, exists because at some point the brain calculated that comfort was the priority and built systems to protect it. Those systems work exactly as designed. They protect your comfort with extraordinary efficiency. They also prevent every form of growth that requires discomfort as its entry price, which is every meaningful form of growth that exists. Here is something genuinely uncomfortable that most people never examine directly. The identity you are currently living was built without your conscious participation. Before you were old enough to critically evaluate information, before you had enough life experience to form your own framework for what was possible and what was not, your environment handed you a story about who you are, what you are good at, and what you are not. What kind of life is realistic for someone like you? What you deserve and what is out of your reach? what trying and failing says about you as a person. You absorbed that story. You built your self-concept around it. And over years of living consistently with that story, you turned it from an external narrative into an internal identity, one that now feels so much like the truth of who you are, that examining it feels like attacking yourself rather than examining a piece of inherited programming. Here is why this is the most important illegal truth in this entire video. Your behavior will never consistently exceed the ceiling of your identity. Not through willpower, not through motivation, not through any external system or accountability structure. If your internal story says you are someone who is not disciplined, you will find ways to be undisciplined even when you are trying to be disciplined. If your internal story says you are someone who is not the kind of person who earns serious money, you will unconsciously sabotage financial opportunities that contradict that story, because the brain is a consistency machine, and inconsistency with identity feels like a threat even when the inconsistency is positive. The men who escape average are almost always the men who at some point looked directly at their inherited identity and made a deliberate decision to replace it, not to improve it incrementally, to replace the foundational story with one that was consciously chosen rather than unconsciously absorbed. This is not affirmations. This is not pretending to be someone you are not. This is the hard, confrontational work of identifying specifically which parts of the story you are living were handed to you by people and environments that had no special authority to define your limits, and deciding that their definition is no longer the operating system you run on. The fifth illegal truth is this: you are not discovering who you are. You are choosing who you are, every single day. And the choice you have been making by default is to keep living the story you inherited, rather than build the one you would actually choose if you understood that choosing was an option. Everything up to this point has been diagnosis. Now here is the prescription. The specific operational changes that produce the actual escape from average, identified by examining what the men who made it out actually did differently from the men who stayed. The first change is morning ownership. The first hour of every day, before your phone, before external input of any kind, before anything that hands the direction of your attention to something outside yourself, belongs entirely to you and to the work that actually matters. This hour is not for planning or consuming or warming up. It is for the one thing that most consistently gets pushed to last in the rest of your day, because everything else claims priority first. Your body, your most important skill, your most important project, whatever the work is that would most move your life if you actually did it consistently, that work gets the first hour, before the world takes over, before the defaults reassert themselves, before the day becomes the day and the hour disappears into it. The second change is environment engineering. Stop relying on willpower and start changing the physical and social conditions that make the right choices easier and the wrong choices harder. Delete the apps that consume without building. Put the phone in another room in the morning. Put the thing you need to work on where you cannot avoid seeing it. Build the physical space of your life to support the identity of the man you are becoming, rather than the defaults of the man you are trying to leave behind. Willpower is depleting and unreliable. Environment is persistent and automatic. Build the environment before you need the willpower. The third change is one skill built with intensity, not 10 self-improvements simultaneously. One skill, the specific skill that sits between where you are now financially and where you need to be, pursued with the kind of focused, daily intensity that produces real competence within a year. 1 hour minimum every single day on that one skill, not learning about it, building it. The distinction is everything. Reading about a skill is not building it. Using it under conditions that challenge your current level is building it. Discomfort during the practice hour is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that the right thing is happening. The fourth change is social auditing. Look honestly at the 5 people you spend the most time with, not to judge them, to understand the direction of their pull on your trajectory. Then make deliberate decisions, not dramatic, not cruel, but deliberate, about where your investment of time and energy goes based on what those investments are actually producing. Simultaneously and urgently, start building exposure to people who are operating at the level you want to reach, not to use them. To recalibrate your reference point for what is normal, what is possible, and what level of effort is required to get there. 15 minutes. That is what this took. And in 15 minutes, I gave you the 5 illegal truths about why average is where you are, and the 4 specific changes that move you out of it. Now, the only question is what you do in the next 15 minutes. Not tomorrow, not after one more video. The next 15 minutes right now. Because the escape from average is never a single dramatic moment. It is a decision made in the next 15 minutes. And then again in the 15 minutes after that. Every day. Until the compounding of those decisions produces a life the man you are right now would not fully recognize. That man is not far from you. He is 15 minutes of different decisions away. Every single day. Stay sharp.